New York State Senator Velma Montgomery has been a champion for people who are underserved, people who live in underserved communities, people who go to underserved schools, people who are underserved in so many ways. Her bio is more than impressive and too long for us to read in terms of her legislative accomplishments. I would, though, like to tell a story about the male residential serendipity program when it first came to the Bedford-Stuyvesant community in 1989. There was an outcry, and we don't want it. We don't want addicts moving to our neighborhood. At that time, the Staying Out program also operated an in-prison treatment program, and they said, are you crazy? You want to bring addicted ex-cons to our neighborhood. There was a community board meeting that our founder and former executive director Ron Williams attended, and he asked Senator Montgomery, would she attend? She had just had a baby, and she came to the community board meeting with the baby. And everybody told her, if you let this program open in our neighborhood, we're gonna see to it that we're gonna see you out of office. She stood up to them and said, just so you know, there's already drugs and crime in our community. And if you think that more will come as a result of a comprehensive residential TC-style program, you're crazy. And she stood up for the program. She stood up for the individuals who had been in the prison program, some of whom she knew for her whole life. And she said, we're gonna do what's right and we're gonna let this program open. They said to her, you're out. Some 15 or 16 elections later, some 30 years in elected office, and she's still standing. And so is serendipity. So I would also like to just add, Thank you. I just want to add quickly that some number of years later, about a decade later, we opened what she asked for. When we first opened the male program, she said, why isn't there a program for women? Okay. And in 2001, under her leadership, we opened Serendipity 2, which is a residential program for women. And I'd like to add that later this year, not only with her support, but the support of our good friend Rob Kent at Oasis and others, Serendipity 2 will be reopening in double the amount of space under a major capital project, which is going to be completed in the next 1 month. So thank you, Senator Montgomery. Thank you, Rob. Coalition for Community Services honors New York State Senator Velma Montgomery with the Lifetime Service Award for your tireless efforts in advocating for addiction services in New York State, March 3rd, 2020.
Thank you. Thank you. I really appreciate this award, and I just want to take a minute. Obviously, I want to thank my colleagues for being here. I see the Kings County, chair of our Kings County Democratic Party is here. Assemblywoman Bishotte. Thank you, Assemblywoman. And my Assemblywoman is also here, Tremaine Wright. Tremaine, thank you. And our new guy, he's new on the block, but he has come in as if he's been here a long time. He's pushing everybody. You should know he worries us to death at our conference. That's Senator Harcum. Senator, thank you. He is chair of the Committee on Substance Abuse, and he's been going all around the state on our behalf, advocating. And my staff, would you stand up, guys? This is my staff in Albany. So when you come to Albany, they're the ones that you see. And Julia is not here, but she'll be along. So those are the people who are always with me when I need some extra political help, when I need staffing, when I need them to represent me. They're there, and so I have to acknowledge them. But I just was trying to remember how I got started. Who were the people that I was introduced to begin to have this had a whole different meaning for me. One of those people, his name was John David, I believe, John David, who is no longer with us, but I shall always remember. Why I remember him was because he reminded me of this young man who was speaking today. He came and he said, I came because we would like to do, he was representing Serendipity Therapeutic Communities, and he said, we would like to open up a residential program here. And he says, I grew up here, and this is my home, and I want to come back home to live. And I thought, wow, that makes so much sense. How could you deny someone an opportunity to come back to their community? He says, I'm a changed person. I've been incarcerated, but I'm back now. And so I had it was a different feeling, because I had a sense of an obligation that went beyond just who was the loudest community voice pretending that they could bring you down because you did something that they didn't like. And then there was another young man that I met, Glenn Martin. And the reason that I say Glenn is because Glenn was, is a very brilliant young man who had served a time in prison, and said that he decided on his last day, his last few steps out of the prison for the last time, that the CO said to him, "You'll be back because you're paying for my son's boat. So every time you come back, I'm happy." So Glenn decided he was not going to go back. And that turned him around. Then there was Ron Williams, who I met, who was the executive director of Therapeutic Communities. And Ron was really sort of a guy who you would be convinced was the CEO of a Fortune 500 operation. That's how he respected Therapeutic Communities. And he carried that aura of respect with him. And the young man that was sort of his protege was Seep Varga. So that's when I met these two guys. And they really were sort of not only an inspiration, but because they understood the system and they understood the nexus between the political process and what the whole issue of criminal justice broadly, I learned from them. I learned how to think about it and what moves made sense and who made sense. And then there was a young woman who was really, she is sort of a towering giant in the business, and that's Reverend Vivian Nixon. I don't know if you know of Vivian Nixon. She is a woman who came in and said to me once, we were organizing, Tremaine, we were organizing our weekend workshop. And she says, "I want to be on that workshop, and I demand to be there." I didn't know her at that time, but when she came, it was so, I felt like, wow, I discovered a very, very important person. And she's been that in my life since that time. Not only that, she has developed a program where she takes women who are returning from having been incarcerated and helps them get through college. And so she runs the college and community program fellowship program in the city, in New York City. There's been so many others. Now, that group, by the way, were with me. I convinced them to come with me to meet with the guy who was just becoming governor. And I'm gonna say his name. I know you may, squirm a little bit, but that's okay, because it's done now. They did it. It was Elliot Spencer. And I don't know if anybody here know or knew Elliot Spencer, but he never had but 2 seconds for anything. So he said to me, I go to this meeting, and I had all of these guys, all the ones that I just named, and some others were with me. And they said, we'll go and talk to him. I wanted them to tell him what they did. They all ran programs. And he said, I'll stay with you a half hour. That's all I got. That's it. And I'm out. So he did come, sat down at the table, and the guys and women started talking about what they did for people. And we even had some guys come from all the way from Long Island, Staten Island, and all over. So when he started to hear what they were saying, he was so taken aback. Not only did he stay longer, but he stayed around. We have pictures of him. He stayed until after the meeting was over, and he said to me, I've never been to a meeting like that. And true enough, and I was saying, you guys were the source. When he was elected governor, one of the first things that he did was he established a program dealing with reentry. That was sort of the beginning of our reentry movement in the state of New York. So that was what you did, and you keep coming here talking about what you do, how successful you are. This young man with his fine suit that he bought himself, he looked good, don't he? So that's what it's all about. Keep coming, showing people, showing us, showing the people here that the investment in you is very, very, very important. And it pays off in very big dividends, very short time. Because I'm looking at the dividends that I pay, and I told those people, they tried to throw my child out of that meeting, Tremaine, that was your community board. You weren't there at that time. You weren't there, that's not, but they did. They carried on so terrible. My son, my baby, started screaming, and I told them, you threw my baby out of that place, but that's okay. He's fine now. And we're still here. So thank you, all of you, for being here.